All right, I sure picked a great time of day to come out here. It's bloody bright. You barely see anything. Woo, nice sunny day. What I want to talk about today is some of the long-term effects of prescription drugs. Yes, I know I've been talking about this too much, but it's a really important topic, so I'm just going to touch on it a little bit, and then we'll get into something else. So basically, right off the bat, general statistics on drug use in North America: 66% of adults take prescription drugs. 66%. That's huge. Like, the majority of the population are on prescription drugs. Why? So, 1 in 3 adults takes at least 5 or more prescription drugs every single day. 5 or more. That's 1 in 3 adults. 1 in 3 adults relies on prescription drugs for whatever reason. Do you think that is really true? Like, I think we're kind of being sold some baloney here. This is crazy. Adverse drug reactions, or ADRs, are the fourth. I actually think it's higher than this. It says it's the fourth leading cause of death in the U.S., accounting for over 100,000 deaths per year. But I think it's actually the second or third leading cause of death, because there's properly prescribed drug deaths and then there's improperly prescribed drug deaths, and they're both right up there. Yeah, properly prescribed drugs just having adverse reactions is right up there with cause of death, which is scary. When you think about it, and this is funny, little side story. I was on a call one time with somebody who wanted to work with me. She wanted me to talk to her parents, and her parents were actually both professionals in the field of prescribing psychiatric narcotics, psychiatric drugs for people in psych wards and stuff like that. And their daughter was dealing with bipolar disorder, and she had actually been overprescribed drugs. Both of her parents work in this field, and she was overprescribed drugs that nearly killed her and left her in the hospital, recovering, not doing well. And they were concerned. That tree is making crazy noises. Wow, okay. So they were concerned about the safety of the natural medicine that I was planning to use. And it just kind of boggled my mind, because I got very clear that the medications that I work with, like all the herbs and all the tinctures and all the stuff, is safe enough for children and elderly. And it's non-toxic, and it's incredibly safe. The safest it ever could be. It doesn't even compare to the toxic overload of pharmaceutical drugs. They can't even sit on the same playing field. It's uncomparable. So anyway, I had a laugh about that, because I just thought, I'm like, I understand the concern, but seeing how they were concerned about this, but seeing how they weren't concerned enough about the drugs that they were using, like, that's where the concern should have been. And yet, 2 professional parents still managed to have their daughter overdosing, overprescribed. So she was taking what she was prescribed, and that led to toxicity that nearly killed her. It's crazy. Anyway, long-term common medications associated with serious chronic illness are antacids, of all things that seem, pretty harmless, but antacids are linked to dementia, kidney disease, and bone fractures, which are all incredibly common. Like, if you go to an elderly folks' home and you ask, like, what are the majority of people dealing with here right now, you'll see that dementia, kidney disease, and bone fractures are just right up at the top of common ailments that people are dealing with. Next is antidepressants. So antidepressants associated with emotional blunting, sexual dysfunction, and increased risk of suicide, which is crazy. Like, we're trying to help people, not increase their risk of suicide. It's just nuts. It's just nuts. And then there's statins. Statins contribute to memory loss, 2 types of diabetes, and muscle breakdown. Now, when you think about how many elderly folks are being prescribed statins, and you've got muscle breakdown, memory loss, and diabetes, like, And then diabetes leads to even more disease. Like, these are just horrible things. And then opioids causes depression or dependence, and more sensitivity to pain. So it's quite the opposite of what you want when you're taking opioids to get rid of pain. You don't want to be causing more pain intolerance. All right, so the other thing I wanted to mention is that some of the withdrawal symptoms for these things, especially antidepressants, are so strong, they're so horrible, that most people stay on the drug way longer. In fact, at least 50% of people stay on the drug way longer than they should be or need to be, or if they haven't needed it at all, but they stay on it longer just to avoid the horrendous withdrawal symptoms. They don't want to be taking the drug anymore, but stopping taking it leads to horrible feelings and just the great laundry list of side effects that come along with that. And they're just so unbearable that people are just like, no, I'd rather just take the drug. I'll keep these horrible side effects because the withdrawal symptoms are just so awful that I can't even fathom trying to wean off of this drug. Perfect business model. Yeah, and 130 people die every single day from opioid overdose. That's crazy. 130 people every single day dying from opioid overdose. It's nuts. So why am I bringing all this stuff up? Well, because there's so many ways to overcome these kinds of diseases and disorder. And everybody's been kind of at the whim of their doctor, just trusting everything that they say. But here's the thing about that. Your doctor went to school and was just taught what they were taught. They didn't go out and live a whole bunch of different, lives, having different diseases and figuring out how to treat all these things. They're just going by what was in the book. And what was in the book was just written by somebody that decided what would go in the book. You understand where I'm going with this? So, we have so much trust in the medical system. But our medical system here in North America has been built upon a pile of lies. And I've got no problem saying that right now, because as a kid and I learned about Hitler and, the whole Nazi party and concentration camps and everything that went on, because my mom was a social major and she had learned a lot of this and she taught a lot of this in school, and so she did a lot of extra research, and naturally I got in on some of that knowledge and it blew my mind. But what really got me was that after all of that, the people that were working, the doctors, the scientists that were all working in these concentration camps, were given a free pass into North America to come work for us. And when I say work for us, I say that very strangely, because it's more like experiment on us. They took what they learned, experimenting on people and torturing people, and they brought it here to North America and applied what they learned and expanded on it. So they formed, our WHO and all these, the FDA, what else? They're in charge of all these things. And so therefore we've got our water systems that have chlorine and fluoride put in them. And with the fluoride that's in our water, they used that in concentration camps, experimenting on people to see what would happen, and they found that it made people more docile and controllable. It dumbed them down. Like, it sincerely dumbed them down to make them docile and thus more controllable. And that's what they decided to put in everybody's city water supplies. No more drilling wells. We don't want you drilling that nice, healthy, clean, fresh, living spring water, well water. No, wells are dirty. You must get the city water. It's clean. Chlorine clean. So I found when we moved into this house many years ago, I found a little kit for testing chlorine levels in water for a pool. So I got curious and I took the little beakers and I filled up some of my spring water that I get delivered, and I filled up some of my tap water. And I put the little drops in to test for chlorine, and then I held the little beaker up to the little color gauge thing that they had in the kit. and it had like dark yellow to light yellow or dark yellow to white kind of thing to say how much chlorine was in the water for what color the water would turn. And my tap water came back over and above the amount of chlorine that was supposed to be in there for pool sanitation. That was my tap water. That's what we were supposed to be drinking. And that's what a lot of people here are drinking, is water that is so chlorinated. It's over chlorinated for pool use. That's disgusting. I know people are saying, well, there's different types of chlorine. I know. They put the stuff in the water that doesn't have that chlorine smell like the pool does, so that people aren't suspicious of it. But the fact is, it's still chlorine, and it's still messing up your guts. Think about that. Our guts are really important microbiomes that have all kinds of bacteria that fight for your life. Like, we need bacteria, our bacteria. And when you go in and start sanitizing your intestines with chlorine, you're really putting yourself at risk for more infection, indigestion, all kinds of things. Like, it just makes no sense. You're not supposed to drink chlorine. If you look at the label on any chlorine bottle, it's marked poison. It's hazardous. You're not supposed to drink it. I don't care what form it's in. You're not supposed to drink chlorine. Anyway, so there we have it. We've got a bunch of descendants of Nazi Party scientists and doctors that have created our medical system based on what they use to torture and experiment on people and in concentration camps. And that's who's running the show in North America. That's who decided, what was going to go forth into our medical system education. And that's what's being taught, and that's what's being used on you right now. Obviously, it's been expanded on over the years, but I think the only thing they've expanded on is the drug list and the disease list. Every year they roll out new diseases. Every year they roll out new toxins with their... You can disagree with me all you want, but go ahead and read the labels of things. If you get curious, read the labels. Read all the ingredients when it comes to any of the drugs that you're going to take, including the government-issued injections. Read the labels. And then, once you have all the ingredients, look up each and every single ingredient and what the effects of ingesting that stuff is. To eat it, to inhale it, to drink it, to inject it right into your bloodstream. Look at all those things. You might be surprised. I know I was. I did a lot of research before my first daughter was born because, everybody does the thing where you're like, oh, you gotta, get all the inoculations for your kids. And I'm like, do I though? Because I actually heard that all of the inoculations that kids get wear off, like if there's any efficacy at all, it wears off by 4 years old. And I'm like, I'm not planning on putting my kid in daycare, and I'm not planning on setting her loose into a big disease fest. And that was my thinking at the time. Like right now, it doesn't matter where she would go, I still wouldn't get those things. But if it wears off by that time, what's the point? And that's another thing. Like my husband, he got his jibby jabbies when he was a kid, and he still got the measles? Yeah, still got it. They're like, oh, weird. It's like, no, nothing's adding up. Nothing's adding up. I can tell you right now that I got a toxic load of that stuff when I was a kid, back in the 80s there, and it didn't serve me well. No, it's shown in statistics that by taking all these toxic drugs, it actually increases your risk of chronic illness, asthma, eczema, MS, cancer. All these things just go through the roof. And it might not happen right away. It might just happen later in life, especially if you just keep taking them over and over and over. What I really want to say is that if you're sick of feeling sick, if you're tired of feeling tired, if you're tired of just getting nowhere, and you don't like waiting in lineups for prescription drugs, like I got so tired of going to the pharmacy and having to, I'd like to refill my prescriptions, and then they refill your prescription, you go stand in the lineup. Oh, they're not actually ready yet. Could you come back in an hour? I'm like, no. Oh, I would get so irate. I was kind of an asshole back when I was dealing with my mental health issues. If they didn't have my drugs ready, oh my gosh. I was so fearful of what would happen to me if I didn't have my prescriptions filled. I would go into panic mode if I didn't have my prescriptions filled. And if I went in there and they're like, for whatever reason, they're like, no, we can't refill these yet, not for another week or whatever. And I'd just be like, what? Or if they'd be like, yeah, these aren't going to be ready till tomorrow, I'd be like, what? It was crazy. You know, looking back, I was like, oh man, how embarrassing. But at the same time, like, that's the kind of fear that was instilled in me about these drugs. Like, I was convinced I needed these drugs or all hell would break loose. And granted, you know, like I said before, the withdrawal symptoms of coming off of psychiatric drugs or any drugs at all can be so horrible and so horrific that, yeah, all hell does break loose for a little while. Unless, of course, you have really good support in place and maybe some, you know, proper herbal medicine to ease the transition to health rather than drug dependency. Right now, if this is you, if you're dealing with this kind of stuff, or maybe you're dealing with symptoms and you have not taken drugs, that's even better. And you really do want to recover, get better, find a different way. I urge you to join my free school community, Mind and Body Rebuild, and get started. Get started changing your life, because life is just too short to spend it in crappy lineups waiting for stuff that just hurts you over and over and over, trusting people that really don't have your best interest at heart. They really don't. You know? You've got one chance to be the best you that you can absolutely be and live the best life that you can, because this is the only runaround you have in this meat suit, you know. We're supposed to be having these amazing spiritual experiences on this earth, and we spend most of our time just worrying about bad things happening and pain and suffering. It's crazy. The tree just keeps distracting me with its weird rubbing noises. It's pretty windy over there. There's huge trees beside me. They're just like, anyway. So yeah, join my community, Mind and Body Rebuild, and get on your path to being awesome, having a better life. Have a great day.